Hi, and welcome back. This is Maggie, and fantastic you tuned in today. Today, we're exploring an ancient tool called the Enneagram, which is a tool that shows you which patterns you learned as a child, and that might be still holding you back now as an adult. And this nicely connects to a cross-sector career moves panel I've recently run on LinkedIn, where one of the key takeaways was that whether it's leadership, it's a career change, or just managing and navigating relationships in your private life, it all starts with self-reflection and self-awareness. An Enneagram is one of many tools, yet a really powerful tool that can help you to unpack your patterns, to understand yourself better, to understand the needs and the behaviors and the preferred ways of working of your team better. And you can even use it for your private relationships, understanding your partner better if you get him or her to do a test. So tune in, listen to this episode, and enjoy. You're listening to Leadership's Insights, Navigating Career and Life. I am Maggie Rombach, your host, bringing inspiring stories and practical advice on leadership, career development, and work-life balance. So welcome to Leadership's Insights, brought to you by Maggie's Mindset Mastery Academy. And as always, I'm super excited about my guest. Today it's Ina Malaya. She herself has an amazing leadership story. We'll hear about that a little bit, and then we will zoom in on a self-assessment tool called the Enneagram. So with no further ado, I give you the word, Ina, to tell us a little bit more about your story, your mission. What are you aiming to achieve in the world?
Hi, Maggie. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Ina Malaya. I'm the woman entrepreneur leading to impact organizations that I created, self-funded, self-created, self-developed with a fantastic team of professionals on each of those. I'm the corporate executive in the past. I built my career in brand and strategic marketing and insights. And then suddenly I received 6 years ago the big slap into my face by being redundant from the very big organization in Switzerland, where I was at that point of time divorced single expatriate mother with a lot of financial obligations. So the question you are asking here, like, what do you do? And the people were asking me, like, you are crazy, you are going to launch your own business. Well, you need to secure the basics for yourself and for your kids for the future. And Switzerland is a very difficult market in terms of boosting the entrepreneurial activities. But I learned about the Enneagram at that point of time by chance. Everything is happening by chance when we keep the eyes open. And then actually that test showed me that I have the very strong capacity to lead my own thing, and I will have very big difficulty to some extent on listening to someone's other directions and inputs on how I should live, act, think, and behave. So this is a little bit about myself.
Wonderful. So you discovered Enneagram, it helped you with your own journey. So that's amazing. And we'll be also talking about transition a bit more later. So also for listeners that haven't seen Ina and me on LinkedIn, so we recently run a panel. I run a panel where Ina was one of our panelists on cross-sector career moves. So indeed, we also touched on the Enneagram and how this can really help when you're looking for a job or when you're trying to make a move. So to get really into the depth of the Enneagram, maybe just for starters, Ina, can you explain a little bit what it is, what's the origin, and what does it aim to do?
This is the very old methodology. My teachers and trainers and gurus of the Enneagram, when I did my certification, told me that it comes from the ancient Greeks actually. And then if you think about the Enneagram at the word, Ennea is 9 in Greek language, and gram is the corner or side. So this is the topology that has 9 different personality types that you can break down in 3 main areas: on the emotional center, mind center, and body or activity center. This is the way how we think, act, feel, and actually act upon our initial instincts. And the Enneagram as the methodology shows your behavioral patterns, values, and motivations that taking the roots from the early childhood because of the ambience where you used to grow, or the people that influence your development actually created the certain set of habits and beliefs that you carried on in life into your adulthood, the way how you build your society, your development, your profession, your career, your business, whatever. It is very interesting introspective to see where did you come from and where the current behaviors are taking the roots from when you were a little kid growing in the specific ambience.
Thank you. And that's amazing because I've recently done another personality test. I mean, I'm addicted to them. I think they're all useful. But they also talked about how a lot of things shape before the age of 7. So Enneagram has kind of a similar approach then. It's really early childhood patterns that we shape that then influence how we are later in life, right?
Mm-hmm. And I personally, I love working with the psychologist for myself, and again, recommend this to to my clients. And literally, the Enneagram took the bigger growth path and the awareness, especially in the North and South America, in the beginning of 20th century, and then by mid of 20th century, that became a part of the psychology course in the universities. So it has a lot of psychology, and I cannot precisely say about the early age, but literally, if you think about what each Enneagram types that tells you as your core motivation, you actually think about what was happening in the past, and this reconfirms your behavioral patterns and limitations as well. And on my practical case, when I was working with my psychologist on certain things that I had to tackle and to understand better where certain patterns are coming from, actually what my Enneagram types, the dominant types I have, are directly reflecting what we were working on when I was a little kid, and we started from the age of 1, the memory is there. It sounds crazy, but when you go with the right professional, you go deeply inside of yourself, you can get that memories from being like super small. You would not imagine that that can spark in your head. You put these things together, and this is the magic of the Enneagram. 9 types, you cannot be one. You have the combination of several. It's just some are driving you the most, or what is again related to the job strategy or the anxiety that we have with the potential loss of the job and the financial security is we're becoming overwhelmed by stress. And then when we're overwhelmed by stress, we are activating those negative attributes of our types, or even worse, we activate the negative, less resourceful attributes of the types that don't directly belong to us. When we have this feeling of waking up another day and saying, why did I say this? Or why did I do it? It's not me. And then Enneagram can very easily explain you why you have done specific thing, because under the big dose of stress, you were overwhelmed and actually activated the negative patterns of the types that are not directly yours. So in all the integrity of the Enneagram system, you can learn which types are directly yours and healthy attributes of those you use as a strengths. But then also you can see on your career trajectory, on the pitfalls, what drives you in the more negative behavior or toxic patterns of the Enneagram types, and how you can manage it to again balance with your strengths and be more complete persona.
Cool. Let's be a bit more specific, because, I'm a curious person, and you and some other colleagues and friends of mine work with Enneagram. So I did my test. And actually, I tell you my type in a second. But what I realized when I read through my test, it actually said like, your type often has a traumatic experience early in childhood. And I was like, no, I didn't have that. So I started digging. And it was amazing because I found, I wouldn't maybe not call it traumatic, but I found like a fairly annoying and, an experience that really went against my values in my teenage years. And I discussed it with my psychologist and I actually worked on it and I think I released it. And it's really amazing, just even starting to look to these places, you might find things that actually frees you up. So I am apparently type 7, but I'm equally high almost on 8, and I'm also really high on 3. So based on that, is there anything you could just, say about how I would react under stress? What would freak me out most?
Mhm. So the combination of 783 and well, probably I will not surprise you with that. This is my combination as well. But with a little bit different order, I'm 3, 7, and 8. Well, it depends on which type you take as your main dominant one or how you balance different types in different situations. I learned to apply different types and strengths of the types based on the different situations and needs. Because my dominant is 3, I need to achieve. I need to tick the boxes, right? So I'm managing and manipulating my types and in the communication to achieve my goal. And on 7, well, I'm not asking you about that specific experience that happens, but the type 7, the joyful person, these are yes people. These are people who open to a lot of opportunities, and knowing how many interesting things you are doing and engaged in so many things, I'm not surprised that your dominant type is 7. But looking on the life from the point of very positive, optimistic perception can also neglect a little bit or limit your view on risks and challenges. From the good side, you don't see that, right? But sometimes we need to be more down to earth and be realistic with the things that are happening around us. For type 7, this is the limitation because you want with beautiful pink eyes, you want to fly, you want to have the plenty of opportunities, right? And when you are getting into something new, you think this is it, and then you are very easy to create 10 opportunities in parallel like that and jumping from one to another, right, by exploring the beautiful sides of age. For you, it's very difficult to let go because you see every 10 of 10 opportunities is positive, and that brings you something, and then your 3 is telling you, Maggie, yeah, with this I will choose something, right? Being more realistic on the side of things, what you need to keep carrying and what you can let go here and now. This is where you are stretching yourself in terms of, again, 7 is my type. I'm super positive and you are very joyful. You are expressing beautiful energy. And each time we discuss, so when you run the trainings and the workshops and coaching, this is there. You crack jokes, a lot of this is very 7, right? But then, the reality of life sometimes can be not that nice and kind, and we need to be mentally and emotionally to be ready for that. So when you look from the perspective of childhood traumas, you are actually, or maybe this is not the trauma, but the circumstance that happened, and you ask yourself, okay, so if I'm 7, if I'm so positive about what life brings, that says that I'm very difficult to deal with negative emotions because I'm driven by positive emotions. And whatever happens or the risk of happening, anticipated negative emotion that is coming on negative situation, negative toxic people, you close yourself. You turn the page because probably you suffered on certain element or situation or person, people that much when you were the kid. So you build the habit of creating the nice ambience around you and just protecting yourself from negative things. We wear this transparent bubble. But then what's happening when we don't allow ourselves to feel negative emotions or overcome the emotional pitfalls that stays inside? And then when you digest the toxic food, for instance, we know what's happening, right? We are toxifying the body, blood, and then it has the direct impact on the health. the negative emotions that we don't fully digest and just block at certain level of our body or mind, that they stay, and it's not healthy long term. And by neglecting that and just closing your eyes on that, you do even worse for your body, mind, and emotions. My 7 was learning to release that emotions, to step with my foot into the cold water, because then when you step, it's not that cold as you imagined, right? So there are certain things that you can stretch yourself. I can make you the example on how I did it. Since the very young age, I was afraid of these amusement parks and the haze and the something extreme, right? So I never did the Russian mountains, for instance, in amusement parks. No way, you cannot get me there. And I remember when I was a little girl, I remember that we did this eye circle, when you go up and watch the city from the high perspective. I always went there with my father, and my mother always, I remember, always she was staying downstairs because she was afraid of the haze. She could not do that. And so I took this, it's not the trauma, but this is the insight and replication of behavior of my mother. I took it to my adulthood. And we did the trip with the family, and my kids in a very young age, they sat all together in the seats of the most horrible thing in that amusement park, and they were all there, and I was like, no. And then I've seen that childhood memory of my mother not joining me there, and I said, I'll do it.
Wow.
I said, I'll do it because I don't want to repeat the same pattern, and I want to be at that moment with my kids. So I did it, but I knew that my 7 cannot handle that. So I said, okay, I will train my 7. And I did it literally 4 times, one after another. And the first time I sat there, I closed my eyes and I was screaming, and I could not, I just, my brain didn't want to realize what's happening. And I just wanted to leave that 60 seconds and just leave that thing once it's finished, and just to survive, because that actually here I was afraid that I will die there, that it will fall somewhere or fly in the sky and I'm dying, and that's it. So I did the first time and I survived. I was not dead, right? But I realized that I closed everything. I closed the eyes. I was not conscious. I didn't understand what exactly I did. The second time I repeated, I opened the eyes and I was screaming. The third time I opened the eyes, I screamed a little bit still, but I was trying to observe what's happening with me on that. And the fourth time I did one after another, pim, 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 pim. And the first time I was just, I felt as nothing is happening, as I'm sitting in my sofa chair watching Netflix at home.
That's
This is
amazing. But
Mhm.
to stick with that example and that story, because I mean, I tuned down on the crazy rides I'm doing. There's some that get me sick, so I don't do them anymore. But I also started doing loopings and stuff with my 7-year-old. And I actually like to scream. But for me, screaming is actually a conscious way of releasing that emotion, which is a mix of, I don't know, excitement and being scared and all of it. But what also comes up? Because that really resonated what you shared. And I think, I'm also a people pleaser. I think I don't know if that's also typical 7, but, with other tests, I'm just a very like a harmony loving people person. And so for me, anger was a really difficult emotion to embrace because I didn't want to be angry at people because I wanted harmony. So even allowing myself and expressing my anger in a constructive way was really difficult, and I'm sometimes still working on it. And as you say, to allowing and welcoming and digesting and letting go of not so nice emotion, that's a constant learning process. I'm becoming slowly better. So yeah, it's amazing how just by giving you 3 numbers, you can already tell me so many things just based on that. That's really amazing. So
Actually, what you just said, if I can add on that, what I told you before was the observation and the examples of one type on seven. But what you just said now is the accumulation of your three types of seven, three, and eight. Because if I may repeat what you just said, you talked about the anger on people, like as the negative emotion, right? And then pleasing people, not allowing yourself to be negative with them. But here are the different patterns. Not allowing being negative or pleasing people is actually your three type hat, because it's about the value, the main value and need of type three, even though we call that type the achiever, the performers, the successful people. But actually we are doing that. We want to achieve, to be rewarded and appreciation. So we are seeking love. And then when you need that people around you, is well, type two, the helper, they have the life mission on serving others. That's why they are calling the helper or the kind or the loving person. But when we talk about type three, in the need of other people, this is we are looking for love. And then going back to the early childhood, here is the question: how much of love we perceived or were given? It depends, right? Probably we had a lot of, someone gave a lot of love, but we didn't perceive that we had that love, right? And so we carry that and we achieve and push and become the competitive and just need to work a lot and tick our boxes and ambitious, because we are looking for this proof of love. And there is a lot of self-confidence here sitting, again, appreciation and love, right? Why we don't have enough of self-love when we are looking from others, and the big bunch of those others, they don't care. And that brings the disappointment, and then leads you to that seven, that looking for the positive connection with people, and you don't receive it and you disappoint yourself. But then when you said you don't want to go into the conflict with people, or you learn how to go to conflict with people, your eight is the challenger. These are the people who like to put things on the table. Then think about and challenging the status and doing the right decisions in like right there, which could be perceived as the conflictual character patterns, and relatively flexible or aggressive or arrogant to some extent. You just want to do it now, and that is a combination of your three that want to tick the box. You tell the things as they are because you want to have the decision or the act upon it directly, and then you do your best to create the positive ambience around that. But sometimes, again, you need to tell things straightly so people understand, especially if you're talking about the leadership capabilities. We can be nice, but we can manage also on both sides with the challenging, but you get the decision. And I meet a lot of seven, because we do in Babel with the Enneagram in my commercial business. With the Enneagram, we serve teams and we do the team buildings and team performance and team optimization programs where we use the Enneagram. And in the teams, especially marketing teams, digital teams, I see a lot of leaders, decision makers who are sitting in seven, and they come to us asking, like, can you help us perform better because things are not moving and we are so creative. Seven is much a lot of marketing people, right? And the brainstorming, creative thinking. And they said there are a lot of discussions and innovations and novelties, etc., but we don't see that the things are moving or decisions are being made. And of course, because sevens, they need to keep this positivity and the flow of innovation and the ideas around that, but you have to have eight managing the team or being the strong contributor to the team, to saying, stop creating the ideas, we need to make the decision. And then you have three who is saying, okay, the timeline for this decision is here and now, and we need to deliver your creative idea by end of the year, full stop. Otherwise, if you don't combine several types and you don't push the team more in terms of collaborative decision making, the things are not happening and you are losing the momentum, and the business world is moving so fast with all the digital transformations and the evolution of things that you're just set for failure if you don't manage the team collaboration in the proper, efficient way.
this is amazing. I'm loving this. But so the other thing that came up, because I guess on the paper, both you and I have our own leadership stories. I mean, we had like leadership positions in the private and in non-private, in your case, entrepreneurship positions. And even we are type 3, and if I listen correctly, we strive for recognition and love, right? And I actually see that a lot talking and engaging with other leaders, like people that you look at and you're just really in deep respect and amazement of what they achieved, but also they have their insecurities and actually look for respect, recognition, and love. So I just wanted to throw that out there and normalize it, because also maybe some of the listeners might kind of recognize themselves in what you're describing. So if some of our listeners now maybe already recognize themselves a little bit, maybe we only touched on 3 out of 9 types, so maybe they haven't felt like you kind of talked to their own characteristics. So if they're curious now, what would be a usual, how would you go about helping people to really get deep into their Enneagram? They do a test, then what would be a normal process be?
I'll make you several examples because we work with the Enneagram on the team setting as the B2B part of the business, but I work a lot as the Enneagram coach also with individuals and even with the couples. Okay. And that again helps to build them stronger relations for the future, or building the, especially if the couple sharing the business together and they need to separate the roles of who they are as the couple in the private setting and who they are as the couple as the partners in the business, and what roles and ways of working cross responsibilities and that don't mix and there is a borderline between private and personal. This is what I do as well. And to make the example of other types, probably because we spoke about the types 3, 7, and 8, that they're most active, visible, with the most of energy types of the Enneagram. But for instance, if you talk, let's say type 1, the good person or the perfectionist. These people are highly attached to high quality standards, perfectionism, raising the bar all the time. And the name is good person because they are very much, in terms of their core values and beliefs, into ethics, morality, and compliance. So for those people, and another, for instance, similar type 4, which is one of the most introverted types in the Enneagram, the creative person. These people are about the integrity, about the inner beauty. There are a lot of artists, poets, musicians sitting in type 4, also emotional center, because there is a lot of emotions but happening inside. This is very introverted behavior. So both type 1 and 4 are intolerant to superficiality and the things that are not real. So if you are telling, and this happens a lot in business meetings or networking events, if these both types see 1 and 4, see that someone is actively bullshitting and saying these things that really like out of this world, they just turn the back and they leave, and they don't need even to explain why, but they will not be there, right? Why? Because their insecurity is breaking that inner beliefs of what is right and what is wrong, and what is the authenticity of the discussion and the collaboration or the relations you are building with others. There is another type 6, which is the loyal person. These people are very opposite to your type, Maggie, to type 7. These people are saying no, first of all, top of mind, the first reaction prompted no on anything. Not because they want to be mean, but because their security is in validation, anticipating and validation the risks and challenges. They just want to be ready for that. If 7 is jumping directly and saying, I'll manage, that's beautiful adventure, I'm going there. 6 will never go there. They will anticipate first on how dangerous it is, and then they enter the forest, right? And that insecurity is actually why loyal person in building trust with people and long-term relations. In business, is very much about the strategy and keeping the team together, right? So 1, 4, and 6 they will be building long-term relations, processes, because they want to be sure that that goes in the right moral term, it's trustworthy, and it's authentic. So each type has the core values, core benefits. You can combine several. By combination of several, you can see clear behavioral patterns at work. And just to complete on that about the private relations, having the opposite types or similar types in personal setting by creating when you observe there are conflicts and you stop hearing each other and you don't understand why the communication is just went in the different spaces and misaligns and you cannot align it and find this common ground, have a look on your Enneagram types. It can save your family. Have a look why exactly. What are these insecurities that you are driven for? My 3 and 7, for instance, are driven by the insecurity of being abandoned as the little kid and left alone and having this feeling of not being loved, right? So I cannot live with the person who is escaping all the time or do not provide enough of commitment that I stay assured that this person is with me for whatever is happening, right? I cannot, and no one, any psychologist can help me with that. It will be always with me. I can minimize it a little bit by increasing self-confidence and self-love that I'm accomplished alone, but this emotional thing of little girls stay there. And this is where my 3 is, right? To be loved truly, right? And when there are a lot of pressure and demand was put on person like 1, and that person is raising the bar all the time to own kids, to husband or wife, to the colleagues in the job, this is not okay. And when you understand where it comes from and why parents were demanding so much from you, actually you start seeing if the bar is not too high, right? And probably you are putting so much of control and pressure on the people you love and who value the most that breaks the security and trust in the relations. You can have a lot of different perspectives on the Enneagram, and it's a beautiful, not because I'm teaching that, but because I help so many people with that to see life differently and to open the box and to see other opportunities. And especially in our NGO, in non-profit organization we are running, we give the Enneagram test to participants, to those people who are looking for the support, who lost confidence, financial independence, again, financial means and career and job, and looking how to reinvent themselves. The first thing I'm giving them is the Enneagram.
And that really hammers home what came out in that panel that we were both part of. Because I remember one of the big takeaways for me was it all starts with really deep self-reflection. Maybe the intuitive thing might be, maybe I'm afraid my job is at risk, or many of the people you work with, they have come from a different country. So there is, of course, an immediate need to, I don't know, feed my family, pay the rent and all of that. And at the same time, there's a deep need to really go introspectively and reflect and understand how you tick. Because one pattern I've seen also over my different career changes, some of my pattern, they were not very constructive at work, which now I totally understand where they're coming from. I took them with me. So unless you unpack them and you understand them and maybe you make them a little bit better, you will face the same issues faced in your job today, you will face in your next job. So it's really, yeah, just to make this case for deep introspection before you move on. And you mentioned that for you, it's really the first step in your program to take people through that.
There are 2 elements here. On the Enneagram map specifically, when we, as I mentioned, under the big dose of stress, when we start taking more the negative attributes of your type rather than positive attributes, it happens. It's the psychology, the mind, emotions, they work this way. Automated reactions of system 1, right? You appear in front of others in the negative setting and the negative perception. My type 8, for instance, our type 8, you tell me if you experience the same. And when you've seen me the first time, for instance, I have the poker face. And I come out as arrogant in front of others because type 8 could be so serious, and these are very confident people. And I don't, and plus I'm Ukrainian, so Slavic, post-Soviet Union, right? So on my face, my husband, when he met me, he said, if I would see you somewhere in the public place, let's say nightclub or restaurant, I would never come to talk to you to learn more about you because your face was so cold and arrogant that I was thinking, no, it's too much. This woman is too much. Well, I am too much, but on the other perspective, right? So you manage that. And I learned on when I notice, even when I do video recordings or something, I see myself in the camera and I see this face and I'm like, oh, putting the smile on the face because I know that this is not me, that my 7 is super positive, right? So training yourself, training your brain, training your behaviors on both negative and positive side is the wealth of self-leadership experience you can bring. By understanding who you are, this is the starting point to your future career. We start with the Enneagram for vulnerable communities that we are supporting in the professional and social reintegration because we work in my NGO, we work a lot with the migrants and people who have difficult financial circumstances in the moment because you can rewrite your CV and motivation letter 100 times. But if there is no you, or you are trying to redo it to fit the job description with artificial intelligence or whatever to fit the company, that you increase the chances, of course. But if there is no you there, no one would want you. If you will be talking on the networking about the things that don't directly relate to you, and again, being superficial and will notice that regardless what is the story you are talking about, if it's not you, right? So this component of self-leadership, and we're running after each program, we are running the surveys where participants are telling us what was the most valuable thing here, and ranking the different type of sessions or the elements we bring to the program. 3 months is with us, it's big to bring to the program. And every program we have the self-leadership and Enneagram as the top one because they know without that they could not move. And when they start on the month one and how they finish after the third month, the plan has changed. And they said, now this is me. Now this is what I want. And imagine what with that. People in the job market, especially when we talk about Switzerland, which is very complex and complicated in terms of job market. I know people that have been looking for the job for 5-6 years. We manage in Babel and which this is something I'm very proud about for the work my team does. And how we build this training agenda with the Enneagram and self-leadership at the starting point of it, we have almost 40% of employment or securing the jobs for participants of the program. And some are happening during 3 months of program where there were years of silence and reaction from the recruiters on them. Why? Because they understood what they want in life.
Oh, that's amazing. And so another thing that came up, and then we moved to the next section because we could go on forever on this. But so I did a management leadership school at work. It was a 3-year program, but not like on and off. And we used a different tool. And I loved it so much that I actually got certified on it. But the one thing that I learned, so it was a motivation tool. It was, but I see many parallels with the Enneagram. I learned that you can be really good at something that that gives you actually very little energy and you have very little motivation for. So I'm German. Maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe wherever I learned it. So I'm super organized. I'm very structured. I'm really good at that. I can follow up. I'm very diligent. But you know what? I hate it. It gives me very little energy. And for me, that was the biggest takeaway of that tool, just to realize that, to go like, yes, I'm good at that, but only because I'm good at it, it doesn't mean that I like it. So I'm thinking also to listeners that might be really good in their current job because they've been doing it for a decade or two, and now they think like, yeah, but maybe there's something else that would give me much more pleasure, and this is the opportunity to explore that. So it'd be a shame to miss out. So before we move to the next few questions, is there anything else that you feel like we haven't touched on the Enneagram that you're burning to share? No, cool. I think the next one, this is like my little transition segment, but I feel like we already touched on that because so I was wondering, because you've made a few transitions yourself in your life, how did Enneagram help you in yours? So you touched on it a little bit, but maybe if there's one or the other highlight that you haven't touched on, I'd be curious to hear.
I'll make two examples on the professional and private setting because I applied to both. So when I did my transition, I was made redundant in the big corporate and I was looking for myself what I do next. Of course, I had to pass. So either I continue the corporate career and apply for the job somewhere, or I do something new, right? And my seven, of course, wanted to do something new, right? But then at that point of time, I didn't know that I have seven exactly. At that point of time, I did by pure chance. I discovered the Enneagram and loved it so much that I read a lot of books and took the courses and became the certified instructor on the Enneagram. And actually, when I came on my biggest certification, I came to my guru and asked him, look, I'm on 99% of three types, and probably I did wrong the test, and I need to redo it. He said, no, and actually, because we can observe the visual patterns, how people speak, right? I never do the conclusion about the typology of the person just by speaking to the person, but I can see the patterns, right? It's obvious. And my trainer, my guru on the Enneagram, this is one of the biggest gurus on the schools of the Enneagram. There are several today, and he is one of those. He told me, well, what I see, what I hear is actually the test is correct. And he said, you are made entrepreneur. You need to create the things. You need to grow them, to achieve, to succeed, to shine, to be on the stage. And this is what I did all my life, right? I was the model. I was dancer. I was always the chief, the first kid at school, at university, starting jobs early, etc. So he reconfirmed. And for me, that was the sign that I can. Actually, when I was transitioning, I said, can I? I openly asked myself, can I? And I said, from the professional perspective, I can. Yes, I have a lot of knowledge from the previous corporate past. Company invested a lot of money in my professional development. I can. I graduated best business schools in the world. I can. Now, do I have the personal capacity to do that? I did the Enneagram. I validated with my instructor. He said, this is for you. This is where you should be, right? So I continue building my path of who I am. And then even I had a lot of pitfalls and problems with that. So imagine while creating my first company I left the corporate in 2019. The first company I registered in the end of 2020. 1 year after that, I took the time to develop the whole concept. But why I took 1 year to register the company and put it in the working mode? Because I created it once, well, started doing the value proposition of Bavel business the 1 month before COVID started, and I supposed to have it as the offline B2C business. So I had to redo it. And one of the digital spin, I was redoing it with all the current trends and developments and how the industry of training and coaching, professional personal development was shaped. Actually, I ended up with the online coaching and the competitive field was too big. You know, I'm telling you all these details because you see now the combination of the business thinking and the personality and just you put it into the rational. I could say, my seven could say, no, Ina, it's cool, you go, the COVID will be finished soon, right? But you need to have this cold shower and to understand from the business perspective, okay, here's the P&L, when is going to finish, and then how does it impact your profit if you continue doing this way? And then I've seen, no, this is not the way I can do. Okay, we launched the online coaching business, was developed and invested, overly invested so much by the venture capitalists that this platform, by self-funding and self-developing the business alone, I would never get my value in the market, right? So I said, okay, this is not the thing neither. I need to do something different. And in the end of the day, in 2 years after, when I was reinventing during COVID, I decided that my business will be shaped for the businesses for the B2B part, B2B market to help teams navigate better with the Enneagram, with the team development, with the self leadership, soft skills for the future of work. And I created the whole concept of employee engagement, well-being, and post-COVID recovery because I took the insights, what happened with me, into, again, the perspective of the business environment where I am and how I can scale up. And you know what? The war happened in Ukraine, and normally Ukraine and Russia, these are the very big profit and volume markets for any of the business. And then no one was thinking about the employee engagement and well-being. We were thinking about saving human lives and saving businesses in the markets that are highly affected by political instability, right? So you need to redo it again. And when you think about that, again, I could say at some point of time, if I would not be 3, 7, and 8, I could say, you know what? Enough is enough. I go to my corporate environment for whatever job, for the stable salary, and just to secure the financial means for my kids. That's it. I have no one else to rely on. This is me who is brand earner in the family, right? But then my 3, 7, and 8 saying no, and my 8 saying, no, Ina, you are not giving up that easily. You've been there already. We do something else. Hmm? So this is my professional example of actually how you can back to who you are all the time. Open your Enneagram test again and saying no. And I was always stubborn since I was little kid, and I remain same. Even my kids are telling me the same thing now when I'm grown adult and owner of 2 organizations. The private setting, I can tell you again how we work with couples in business on the private setting and how I did it with myself. We had a quite big turbulence with my husband, and we could not understand why we were at some point of time misaligned in the communication and why there were certain things, that really small, silly things that irritated both of us so much that we went into the conflict. And we were with the Enneagram, he completed his Enneagram as well. We discovered he's 8. We love conflicts. We are getting into this, whatever. But then we lost, again, having these similarities, we do the same patterns. And imagine 8 on the stress side, on the low side, like conflicts. So both of us were so at ease to go into conflicts that we started hurting each other. So someone could be smarter in this 8 circle and saying, stop. So we learned how to do that. And then we had these small discrepancies that grew up to the bigger conflicts and were irritated to the big extent later on because he's 1 and I'm 7. Maggie, and our 7 is messy. I put the things all the time in the different shelves. Do you do the same?
Yes, sounds very familiar. And my partner is not, I mean, he's also much more, he loves order much more than I do.
But there is no problem if your plate is on the right placard than it was in the left one yesterday, right? But type 1 just cannot handle it. It should be on the same place every day. You have no right to move it. You have no right to be late for 2 minutes. My record was 1 hour and a half. I was late. And for 7, it's okay. The world is not falling apart, right? But for 1, is the complete 2 minutes is complete disaster, right? So when you understand why these things are happening and why we're freaking out so much on the very small patterns that for some seems to be really not important and minor, but for some in terms of, again, limiting beliefs, behaviors, traumas become the big thing, you create a conflict. Understanding Enneagram types and why these things are happening, making your life so much easier. And you can learn and openly come and say, look, I understand. I told him, I understand why you were so pissed off when we were going somewhere and I took another 15 minutes to prepare myself. And for me, there was like, the road will take 6 hours anyway, so 15 minutes doesn't change anything, right? But I just made it bad from the very beginning, and then there was the long weekend experience. I could avoid it when I would be so more thoughtful about the needs of other person.
So at least to understand. And what I'm also taking away that sometimes a bit of complementary is not bad, or at least when you're the same to understand that that's why you're pushing yourself. But this is so amazing. And we could go on further, but let's move on a little bit because I have my favorite bit to come, which I'm not favorite, I mean, but one of my favorite bits, the quick fire burst round, and then one last question, and then we'll wrap it up. So we'll end on a bit of a quick and high energy. So the quick fire round, how it works, I throw a question at you, and I challenge you to answer with one word, or maybe two words. But the idea is to really kind of go really quick and dynamic. Ready to go?
Mm?
Cool. So describe your leadership style in one word.
Ambition,
What's the key to successful teamwork?
coordination,
One must-read book.
think fast and slow.
Ah, I like it. For once, I read it already. Most books I don't know. Type of dream job if it wasn't your current one.
Tell me again.
What would be your dream job? What could be a dream job if it wasn't your current one?
There is no other one. I love what I'm doing now.
That's wonderful.
None.
None. You found your calling. That's great. What would be your preferred superpower? Like if you could teleport or fly or anything, what would you choose?
Wonder Woman is my superhero and the character I want to have.
Oh, nice. And what are you most grateful for?
For love I have from people around me.
Oh, of course, that's the three, right?
Mhm.
I'm learning. So, as we wrap this up, as a final reflection, is there any piece of advice you would give your 18-year-old self or any young professional that is just starting out today?
Rush for the things that you see in front of you, just try them. You have the full life ahead of you to do the mistakes. And you can fail, and I encourage you to fail because this is how we learn. I teach my kids that all the time since the very young age. And it's a beautiful journey. It's a beautiful experience. You never repeat the same mistakes in your life, and your life is a long journey. So you need to explore all the high and low sides of that as much as you can.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's funny you say you do it with your kids. What I'm doing with mine is I'm telling him, they're no, basically it's like experiments. They're no, like there's only results, right? There's sometimes they're good and sometimes bad. And if the results are bad, well, you don't do it again. And if it's cool, then you do it again. And yeah, so fail fast and learn and enjoy the ride, right?
I had a very interesting situation with my older kid yesterday, and I was observing her behavior. Of course, I'm not testing my kids on the Enneagram. I let them live their own beliefs and develop instead of, putting the typology on that and trying to understand. But I was literally observing the leadership capabilities of my older one yesterday in the way how she was persuading the decision she would love me to make. And I've seen the type 8 there of no matter what, with the very strong arguments, she reached the objective. And I agreed on her terms after 1 hour of the negotiations. And I did that because I've seen as the kid was put together in the very right way, the things, the words, the behaviors, the leadership communication style together. And I'm saying, if she's doing this at her age, I give her all my compromises and yes to whatever she is asking, because this kid will have a big future.
Amazing. So you were secretly proud of her pushing so hard for what she wanted.
Mm.
Oh, this was so rich. We could have gone on for another hour. There's so much depth to this, but thanks so much for sharing all your knowledge and your story. And yeah, I'm for sure we'll be in touch. Have a great day.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for putting the right questions in place so I could open up with a lot of insights, and we could share with the Enneagram story on how actually it can help living more fulfilling life with the flow and full of accomplishments and success for others.
Beautiful. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Have a good day. So that was it for today. Thanks for listening. And if you like this, subscribe and share it with anybody who might benefit from it too. And remember, leadership isn't a title, it's a mindset. And when you realign with what matters most to you and take one intentional step, you create ripples at work, at home, and in how you live. So pause, breathe, and begin. Because change always starts from within and with one little step. So what ripple are you creating today? Bye for now and see you next time.